Good afternoon and welcome to our Civics Tools training this afternoon. I'm Maria and I'm here with my colleague Javi. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. Just a few housekeeping things. If you do have any questions as we go through the presentation, make sure to put them down below and we'll get to them at the end. But with that, we'll start in a few minutes, and until then, grab a snack, grab your notebook, and we'll get started soon. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. Today, we're going to talk about Google tools that can help you connect better with your audience. I'm Maria, and I'm here with my colleague, Javi, and we're going to talk about a whole host of tools that you can use to amplify your message and better engage with your audience as we head into November and into the rest of 2020. So without further ado, let's get started. All right. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about how to set up secure Google accounts as a team, how you can appear in Google search, making sure that you have that authoritative information right when people are searching to find you, and then also how to connect with your audience using Google Voice. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Google Photos, something that we haven't talked about yet here on our live streams, but we will today, which is exciting. So let's jump in. First, setting up a Google account as a team. This is something that I talk about at the top of every single presentation because it's just that important. So we really want to make sure that you have a Google account that really reflects the nature of your work. So you see three different buckets here. The first bucket is your general comms team account. Typically, I'll refer to this as your shared Google account. And really, this is an account that your whole team can access, can manage, and it's something that you share even if you might move on in an office. So that's something like, comms at smithcampaign.org or at an official house.gov or senate.gov email address. And for that, you use that to manage all of your accounts. So your knowledge panel, which we'll talk about, your YouTube channel, running Google ads, and also your other social profiles as well. The other two buckets over here are your individual staffer accounts. And those are your personal email addresses, both at work for your organization, and then also your Gmail accounts as well. So really managing the things that you have. So your own Drive, your own Docs, your correspondence on Gmail, things like that. So things that really aren't owned by the office, but more owned by you. And really, we want to make sure that you have enhanced security on all of these types of accounts. So with your comms team account, make sure that you have a password manager, not a spreadsheet, really taking care of the password of that account, and then the passwords of all your different accounts that you're managing on behalf of your office. And then, of course, two-step verification for those personal accounts as well. And you can do a security checkup just to see the health of your accounts, making sure that the devices that you want to be signed in are, and you can see that right in here. All you have to do is go into your account or go to g.co/security checkup. And then, of course, there's an extra layer of protection that you can get with the Google Advanced Protection Program. It's an actual physical security key to make sure that you are protected during this election cycle because we know that targeted attacks happen in our space for people that are looking for information. So really want to make sure that we protect our data, protect our information, and lock it down. And you can learn more about that at google.com/advanced protection. And then here's some resources for setting up Google accounts, how to create new ones, really making sure that you have everything you need to make sure that your office is set up in the best way possible. So now that you have your Google account all set up, we want to talk about how you're appearing in Google search. So appearing in Google search, of course, it's something that most of us do multiple times a day. We search for something, ask our questions, and look for public figures. So how does search actually work? Well, here are the different components of Google search. This is a Google search of George Washington. Of course, we have to pay homage to our first president and kind of look around and see what shows up for him on search. So first, you see a Google ad here on top. Then his organic search results. So you see top stories. A lot of folks in the political space will see these top stories as well, maybe a Twitter carousel, just different articles. Those are some things that you might see in organic results. And then here is the knowledge panel. The knowledge panel is something that most public figures have, anyone from Beyonce to George Washington to members of Congress and people of public interest. So here's the knowledge panel, and we'll go around and kind of talk about how you can claim that panel as well. And then lastly, here's your Google My Business profile as well. Typically, it'll pop up when you're looking for the office, or it might pop up under that knowledge panel on desktop. So what tools do you actually use to establish your organization on Google search? Well, first, claim your knowledge panel. Making sure that you have authoritative information on search is something that we want to make sure that you have ownership over. So really that spotlight information on public officials, candidates, and organizations is something that we want you to be the arbiter of your own authoritative information. So first, in order to do so, make sure you signed in to that shared Google account that we talked about at the top. You search for your organization or your principal at the top. You can do this. I recommend doing this on desktop. You can do it on mobile, but it's a little bit easier on desktop. So navigate your cursor to the knowledge panel on the right-hand side, and then click the button below and click Claim This Knowledge Panel in order to claim it. So then you get a screen just like this, and you click Get Verified, and then you complete the verification process. Folks can either have social profiles that pop up, and that's really just to verify that you are an authorized representative of the office. So signing into that YouTube channel, your Twitter account, your Facebook account, whatever might be there for you is something just to verify that you are who you say you are and that you do represent the office. If that doesn't pop up, there's a form that you can fill out to be verified, and it works just as well. And then you've completed the process. This is an example of a claimed knowledge panel. Essentially, the little Claim This Knowledge Panel button goes away, and you're able to suggest edits on the panel. So how do we actually do that? Suggesting edits. So follow the steps in order to suggest edits on your knowledge panel. First, make sure web and app activity is not on by default. So you'll get the pieces that show up right here that say suggest an edit with the little pencil mark. Once you click on that, actually most of the pieces of the knowledge panel will show up in gray, and it'll allow you to suggest an edit to all the different parts of the knowledge panel. Some things that I'd like to point out. Unfortunately, you can't change the Wikipedia snippet, but you can suggest some other pieces as well. So changing the photo, a lot of folks like to swap that out, making sure you have the additional education experience, updating your links to social media, depending on which Twitter profile you want to surface, which Facebook profile, which YouTube channel, you can change that all right here and suggest an authoritative edit. So here are some more of the details. I kind of described how you can suggest an edit and some of the things that you can do on the panel. But there's so much to explore here when you claim your knowledge panel. Here's some resource links for Google Knowledge Panels. Of course, we went in depth here, but there are more resources out there for you. And we're, of course, happy to answer any questions about knowledge panels that you might have. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Javi, and he's going to talk about Google My Business.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Maria. Hi, all. Thanks again for joining us for this webinar. Again, as Maria mentioned at the top of the webinar, if you have any questions, please make sure to drop it in the chat, and we will get to them at the very end of this presentation. So jumping right into it, if we could just go to the next slide. So Maria showed an image of what a Google My Business listing might look like on search. Very similar to the knowledge panel. It's going to highlight your organization. In this case here, you're seeing George Washington organization appearing in knowledge panel. It's going to in Google My Business, this business listing is going to feature some of the most important information about your organization and give users in search a clear call to action when they want to connect with your organization and participate in the important work that you are doing. So we can go to the next slide. Great. So just talking about some of the things that are highlighted in those business listings. When we took a look at search knowledge panels, you saw that it highlights those public officials, their information, most notably like their profile pictures, their job titles, website URL, Wikipedia bio, social media profiles, and all that. When you search an organization, you also, or public officials locations, you're also going to get a lot of really valuable information on that individual organization across their like physical presence, through search. So there are a couple of really important things that you're going to be able to do through your Google My Business listing. One of them is you're going to be able to have clear call to actions for your folks by claiming your location or multiple locations that will then populate on search. You're going to be able to give people relevant information about the specific office or location that they're searching for through your organization. And beyond that, you're going to be able to have the most relevant contact information and have call to actions for folks to actually act on that. So let's say someone wants to visit your office once it's reopened, or the business listing will take them right to Google Maps to be able to navigate there. Or let's say if you're working virtually, like many of us are, you want to direct folks to your website or have them call to get more information about your organization's mission. You're able to do that as well. And then something that's also really cool, you can also post photos for those locations and have them listed through that business listing, so that you can give users a behind the scenes or insider look into your organization in that location and the kind of work that you're doing. And this is going to be really important just to make to draw folks in and have them take that additional step to get in touch with you. Then next slide. Great. So how do you actually get started with a business listing on Google? Well, first, you want to visit www.gybo.com/business. This is going to, or google.com/business. This is going to take you to the page where you can actually get started in creating a business profile, either by establishing listings on search, or by claiming listings that are already existing on search as well. You're going to go in there and type in the name of your business and see if it comes up, or create that listing and then just assign it to a category. And then once you are, if you don't see that listing pop up, you can just click where it says not showing up, and then add all your business information and make sure that you're established on Google Business. Great. And then next, if you prefer to use a smartphone, you can also make updates with our free Google My Business app, which is available on both the Android Play Store and the Apple Store as well. And you can find those apps by going to those individual locations and downloading them directly onto your mobile device. And then going on to resources. So just to leave you all with a couple of resources that might be helpful as you're looking to establish or claim your business listing on search. First, you're going to see this link here that'll so where you can get started. And then there's going to be another list where you can learn how to manage your multiple different listings and ownerships of locations. And going on to the next. Great. So now that you know how to establish yourself on search, both through knowledge panels, but also through Google My Business listings, we're going to transition over to just some ways that you could be connecting with your audience, particularly in this work from home environment. One of the things that we've seen with folks is sometimes it's challenging to continue to stay engaged with your stakeholders when you are no longer physically working from those offices. Managing calls and communicating with those stakeholders can sometimes be very difficult. Thankfully, there are tools that you can use to stay in touch with those audiences no matter where you are. So let's take a look at how Google Voice can help you do that. Going on to the next slide. So Google Voice gives you, what it does is it gives you a phone number that isn't tied to any particular device. So you can make and receive calls from basically anywhere. That could be whether it's from your laptop or mobile device. And I'll show you some of the great things that you can do with this. And going on to the next slide. Great. So starting off, Google Voice allows you to be in control and lets you disconnect from work and have your call sent directly to your voicemail automatically based on your working hours. But it also allows you to call forward directly to any particular number that you have tied to that Google Voice account. So if you want to, let's say you have a Google Voice number established, right? And then after you're done working for that day, you want those calls to either be forwarded to your Google Voice account or be forwarded directly to your any particular device. You're able to do that as well as to your voicemail. And going on to the next slide. And this is actually what it'll look like when you are trying to have those calls forwarded directly to your voicemail. For using Google Calendar, you're able to set working hours through those tools, which means that when you have once you have established working hours, let's say that's 9 to 5 on a standard work day, right? And you enable that voicemail forwarding after working hours. Any calls that come in after 5 p.m. are going to be forwarded directly to your Google Voice voicemail, which will also give you some additional utility, as we can discuss in this next slide. So one of the great things about Google Voice as well, it has a lot of accessibility features. So if you are forwarding your voicemails to your Google Voice account, you can actually see voice to text transcripts of those voicemails. So in case you are somewhere where you can't listen to that voicemail right away, or you just think it's easier and prefer to just like skim over the details of that voicemail to see whether or not it's relevant to your organization and you personally, this is going to be really helpful in just like giving you that accessibility and ease in understanding what type of communications you are receiving. And then going on to the next slide. And then Google Voice is also built with using Google's AI, so it does a really good job at filtering out spam as well. So because it's built with that infrastructure, we're able to detect and prevent unwanted calls from reaching you. So that it allows you to just focus more on the work that your organization is doing and not waste time answering spam calls or scam calls. And going on to the next slide, and this is really one of the coolest things that you're actually able to do with Google Voice, and this is something that's available for folks who are using Google Voice through cloud. So our G Suite products, right? You're able to create what's called ring groups, and with this, and this is particularly useful if you're working for an organization that has multiple people answering calls and responding to your stakeholders, and you want to make sure that everyone is synced up with the same system and is able to respond to those inquiries as a team. You're able to create groups where you can receive calls across those accounts. You can even assign and turn on and off who's going to receive those calls during particular hours. So with ring groups, multiple people in your organization can make and receive calls from the same Google Voice number. A ring group is a way for your team to intelligently route incoming calls to the correct person and device. Which means that within your group, you can easily like triage different types of actions on ongoing calls, like transferring to a different team member on another device as well. So there are a couple really cool features that you'll get through this. One is you can simultaneously and random order call routing, and so that when calls come in, if someone is not available at that very moment, it can go to a different member of your team. And then you can also make outbound calls using the ring group number as a caller ID. And then you can also establish those business hours within that ring group so that any calls that happen outside of those hours can also go to voicemail if you so choose to send them there. Great. And with that, I will pass it on. I'm sorry, Maria, you can, well, this also one additional thing that I can mention is that if you are using G Suite, you can manage all of these different accounts, Google Voice accounts through the same G Suite admin account, which will allow you to easily control everything that's happening across your organization. So like what numbers are active at that time, business hours and like responsibilities within like the communications that you're having. So it makes it really simple to just control it within one organization so that you're not scattered or having needing to use several different numbers to intake calls from your stakeholders. Great, next slide. Yeah, and with that, I will pass it back on to Maria.
Awesome. Thanks, Javi. I know Google Voice is a huge benefit during this time when people are in and out of offices. So I appreciate that. We'll go on to one last thing, Google Photos, and then we'll take your questions at the end. Happy to answer anything that you have about these different topics and beyond. Just put your questions below and we're happy to get to them. All right, so let's dive into Google Photos. Okay, so coordinating with your team using Google Photos. First, log into that shared Google account. I know it sounds like I'm just beating a drum on the shared Google account, but it really is important to make sure that your team is set up for success. And even if you move on from the office or something like that, the office will still have the resources that it needs to be able to communicate efficiently together. So log in with your Gmail or your shared Google account. Google Photos is one of those places where you can use either or because of the sharing and permissioning that you can use, especially because Google Photos is on your phone. And if you choose to have it on a personal device, it, of course, can upload personal photos, and you might not want that on a shared Google account. So you can use your Gmail instead as well. So with Google Photos, of course, you can search for your favorite people, your favorite moments. You can see the highlights on top of a year ago today, 5 years ago today, and you can search really well. And with different devices, the search features are different on photos. But with Google Photos, rest assured, the technology that we have, you can search for your dog, you can search for different places like Capitol Hill. For me, of course, I take a lot of pictures by the Capitol. A lot of my quarantine walks have been there, so lots of flowers, cherry blossoms in front of the Capitol. And just by typing in Capitol Hill, I was able to get all of the pictures that I have taken on the Capitol steps, which is amazing for somebody looking up photos. Also, even just thinking about those social posts, trying to find people and things like that to post, very easy with Google Photos. So something I recommend both on the professional and the personal level as well. So first, you can find photos by location. Of course, we typically move around a lot during COVID, not so much, but there are different places that you go, especially in the political space. When you're on the campaign trail, you're going from campaign stop to campaign stop. And sometimes it's really hard to organize those photos. Of course, they're organized by date, and you can look, what day did we have that campaign stop? We had it on this day. But typically, you also remember what location you had it in. I know when I was on the campaign trail, I went a lot to a place where they had a blueberry festival, and I always wanted pictures from that day. We had some great shots that we took at the festival, and all I had to type in was Hamilton. That was the city that it was in, and I was able to find all of the photos that we had taken at the festival, and then also with the fire department that day. So it's a really great way to locate prominent event stops when you're on the campaign trail, and also when you are here, maybe in DC or back in the district. You can really see exactly where those photos have been taken. What parts of the district have they been taken in? What constituents have you met with? And it's a really great way to parse out your photos when you're looking to post on social, and a great way to also share those photos with the rest of the team. So I'll kind of go through how you can share those photos. So first, create a shared live album. Of course, you can create just a regular old album and pick photos to be in it. However, sometimes things get busy on the trail. You might forget to upload the photos to the album. And with a live photo album, you are actually able to create an album that will automatically add people or pets to an album without you even doing anything. So you can see in the GIF here that we're choosing Ben and Teddy to be in this photo album here, two little boys. But when you take photos of your principal or of your organization, or different people that your principal might meet with, you can put those into a live album. So say you're taking pictures of the congresswoman on the trail, and the pictures of her need to be shared with the rest of your team. So you could just create a live album, click on the photo of her, and say turn on to the live album, and then automatically any photo that is taken of her on the campaign trail will automatically be put into this live album. So it kind of takes that, I'll get to uploading it later kind of work out of it. And it also can be really easy when your team is in many different locations on the campaign trail. So now that we've created a shared live album, how do we actually share it with people? So right here, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, the little three dotted share button is all you have to do to share your album with staff in the office, in the field, or in the district, and you can share it with them instantly, which is amazing. So you can control exactly who's seeing the photos. You can share it with their Google account. You can share it with the shared Google account that you have for the office. They actually don't even have to have a Google account for you to share it with them. There's many different options. You can see below, you can create a link, you can send it via text message, so somebody could just click on the album and be able to access it. So really you can do it on your phone. So you're taking a picture in the field, and then right when you take that picture, the picture of the Congresswoman automatically uploaded to that live album, and then it's shared with that album that people can access both on their phone and on desktop. So really easy if you're looking to do some editing. Of course, you can do editing within app. I know a lot of folks like to use Photoshop and other things to edit their pictures as well. So you can do that seamlessly from phone to desktop to all the members on your team very easily. And I know something it's so simple to, share the photos, but sometimes things just get crazy and it's hard to share them. And, on the campaign trail, I took over 50,000 pictures of the candidate that I worked for. So there's an endless supply of photos that could be going into this album. So I highly, highly recommend getting that live album, making sure that you're picking the folks that you're taking pictures of often to automatically go in the album, and then sharing it with your comms team, with your chief, with your campaign manager, whomever needs to see the photos to sign off to go onto social and in your different publications. All right. So with that, we'll take any questions that you might have. Feel free to drop them below. But to get started, I'll bring back Javi here. Hi, Javi. Amazing. I know we kind of threw a lot of different topics at you all. So if you do have any questions, please drop them below in the chat. But, Javi, I want to get started by just talking about Google Voice a little bit more and why it's so important during this time. I know that a lot of offices are kind of doing the a couple days in and then rotating the staff. Can you talk a little bit about how these ring groups and Google Voice could allow you to have staff, monitoring the phones one day, but then maybe trading it off to a different group the next?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think a lot of folks are familiar with Google Voice in, whenever they're trying to have like a number, like a non-personal number where they can do like regular communications for business purposes and stuff like that. But I think oftentimes like folks don't really know how to bridge that into like building like an organizational kind of structure for taking incoming calls for their organization or business. What ring groups do, and you need to be a G Suite user in order to access these. It allows you to actually like control who's going to be receiving these calls and when, right? Like as you manage this group, you have really control over like what devices are going to be receiving these calls. If one person is not available to take a call, other accounts that are going to be available to also respond. So it's going to give you kind of that same functionality that you would have in a typical office setting, where like if the phone rings and someone else is on another line, someone else can grab that line and answer as well and transfer to someone else. So it's going to give you all that same functionality, but in a virtual environment. And you're gonna all have visibility into things like the calls that were being received, voicemails that came through. So you're also gonna have a lot of visibility across the team for how you're handling communications that are coming in.
Got it. That's super helpful, especially with people trying to juggle being at home, all the things going on the Hill right now, especially with trying to get your campaign office up and running in the field. I know right now that's quite difficult with COVID. So, using those ring groups and kind of having that Google Voice structure could be really helpful to both an official or a campaign operation right now.
And one thing that's also important to note, you can port numbers over in several different ways. Like you can either port a number from an existing carrier into Google Voice if you don't see that you'll be returning to like a physical location anytime in the near future, and you want to just handle those communications virtually. Or let's say down the road, as things go back to normal, you can actually port that number to a carrier as well. So that means that even if you're not no longer occupying the same physical location you might have been for previously, but folks recognize that number. That's a number they call to get in touch with your organization or your office. You can still transition over to Google Voice and still capture those calls, and then return to normal afterwards if necessary.
Wow. That's great. I think that's something I would love to take advantage of that. No, I think it sounds like something that you can really explore in a lot of different ways and make it work for your situation right now, because we know everybody's different. So that's so helpful. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions down here below. But Javi, I know during work from home, a lot of folks aren't going to businesses in person as much anymore. But can you talk a little bit about why during this time it's important to make sure that you have your business panels claimed?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, there are many instances where, based on search data that Google has, where business profiles are going to surface, right? So if one of those profiles happens to be the one for your business, it's very in the same way that we would encourage you to claim your knowledge panel, so that you want to make sure that all the accurate, authoritative information is surfacing on search. Same thing applies for businesses. That may be making sure that the contact information that you have in there is up to date. If your website isn't being listed, making sure that you're adding that information. You can do things like add in business hours, right? Oftentimes we'll see that with the information that's populated through search, business hours may be either incomplete or incorrect sometimes. So you just want to make sure that you are keeping that up to date. Additionally, something that's really cool, you can also list upcoming events in your business profile. So if you are trying to really get in touch with folks in your community and using all of the different social channels that are available out there, this is one additional channel that you can be using to let folks know, let folks who are searching for your business or your organization or your office about upcoming events. That may be anything from a virtual event to something that might be in person down the road. But that's going to give you a little bit more of a social utility like you would get in other platforms as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's important as well. And of course, always a plug for a shared Google account. When you do claim your business profile, make sure you do that under your shared Google account as well, just so it's within your office. And when you happen to maybe move on, it'll still stay there. So that's something that I always recommend for all of the different tools. I think I said it a couple of times during this presentation, but shared Google accounts, very important, and also make sure they're secure. Okay, so I don't see any more questions here, but with that, of course, feel free to ask us any question or contact us at any time at civics-outreach@google.com. There you'll see me, Javi, and the rest of our colleagues that you've seen on all of the different webinars, Erica, Andrea, and the rest of us right there on the alias. Feel free to reach out at any time. We're happy to help and answer any of your questions. But until then, we'll see you soon. And thanks so much for joining today. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you all.